Most people know Adolf Hitler as the dictator of Nazi Germany and the man who made World War II happen. But unlike most historical villains, he stands out for his terrifying combination of charisma, bad artistic skills, obsession with dogs, and somehow convincing an entire country to follow him into absolute chaos. He also liked to give long speeches while standing in front of giant crowds of people waving their hands around like they were swatting invisible flies. Honestly, if you didn't know better, it would look like he was hosting the world's most depressing rave. Before he became the world's most infamous mustache model, Hitler was just a guy who liked painting, architecture, and taking long walks while fuming about Jews, communists, and people who didn't like his favorite sausage. Painting didn't work out. He got rejected from art school multiple times, which is honestly relatable for anyone whose dreams of being a painter were crushed by a literal admissions committee. But unlike normal people, he decided failure was just a suggestion, and instead chose to conquer Europe. Hitler's rise to power was kind of like watching someone cheat in a board game with really persuasive arguments and a terrifying spreadsheet of propaganda. He became Chancellor of Germany in 1933, and the first thing he did was yell at people a lot, ban political opponents, and create laws so strict they made your high school detention system look like a spa retreat. And while some people might think he was just an angry guy with a funny haircut, he actually had a very specific vision. Germany was going to be super Aryan, super powerful, and also very clean. He loved order so much, he probably would have organized your sock drawer and judged your pillow arrangement. Now, Hitler wasn't just about speeches and laws. He also had a very hands-on approach to killing millions of people, which makes him very bad at life choices. He organized what's now called the Holocaust, which is basically humanity's worst group project ever. He thought the solution to Europe's problems involved systematic genocide, which is exactly the kind of creative brainstorming you never want in a meeting. And while this is horrifying from a purely analytical perspective, it shows how absolutely terrifyingly organized he was. He literally combined bureaucracy with evil, which, let's be honest, is probably the only time Excel spreadsheets have been morally horrifying. Besides all that, Hitler was obsessed with appearances. He thought propaganda was more important than most people think, which is why he had massive rallies, posters everywhere, and uniforms that looked like they were designed by someone who played too much Monopoly. And while he was the leader of Germany, he also had very strong opinions about architecture, dogs, and soup. Seriously, he loved soup. Hitler also had the weirdest personal quirks. He was a vegetarian, hated smoking, and somehow believed he could write an opera someday. He spent a lot of time in his bunker during the last years of the war, which is basically the historical equivalent of someone ghosting the world on purpose. And while some dictators try to escape when things go bad, he decided to go out in dramatic style. In April 1945, with the Allies literally outside his door, he chose to end things himself while his dog Blondie watched. It's probably the only time someone made a very bad life decision and thought, at least my dog saw this coming. Now, you might wonder why we even talk about Hitler today. After all, he's been dead for over 70 years. But the truth is, he's like the ultimate cautionary tale of ambition without empathy, charisma without morals, and eyeliner mustaches gone wrong. History remembers him not because he was smart-ish, but because he combined ambition, propaganda, and pure chaos in a way that's both terrifying and kind of fascinating, in a don't-try-this-at-home way. And while he obviously ruined the world for millions, some people can't help but notice his very human flaws. He was terrible at art, obsessed with odd rules, and probably would have failed at a regular 9-5 job. Imagine Adolf Hitler trying to get promoted at an office job. Yeah, I'm gonna annex the printer and start a campaign against the breakroom cookies. HR would have fired him immediately, which is kind of comforting if you think about it. So, in conclusion, Adolf Hitler is proof that charisma plus terrible ideas plus a big mustache can be historically catastrophic. He turned Germany into a horror story, but also somehow became one of the most studied, memed, and referenced figures in history. And while we will never forget the devastation he caused, it's also important to remember the absurdity. A man who was rejected from art school went on to almost conquer a continent, and all because he could yell really, really well. Basically, Hitler is the ultimate example of what happens when someone's confidence far exceeds their morality, their talent, and their fashion sense. And if nothing else, he reminds us to never trust anyone with a tiny mustache, a love of soup, and a vision of world domination.